Welcome to Wednesday. Let's look outside this morning in America, courtesy of EarthCam. We're checking out Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Ooh, and they all look so good. I'm Nick Smith in this morning for Marky Martin. Thanks so much for joining us. It's time for news for all Americans. You're looking live in Chicago right now, where President Donald Trump says federal officials will soon be mobilized to fight crime, with the city of Baltimore also in his crosshairs.
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. When you lose, look, I have an obligation. This isn't a political thing.
The Trump plan is to use any excuse to deploy armed military personnel to Chicago.
We're live with new details about this operation and how it's expected to play out, and analysis on how far this potential deployment could go and where its political policy and optics lie. Overnight, China rolls out all new sorts of military weapons in a show of force, with the leaders of Russia and North Korea joining from the sidelines. What you should know about China's latest military parade, also how Beijing's growing alliance with Moscow and Pyongyang will impact war and peacetime relations here at home. Plus,
I would take the cash payment right now, and I would share it between family and dear friends.
are you having billion-dollar dreams? Well, this could be the time. The next Powerball drawing is tonight, and the jackpot is a record breaker. Your odds of taking home the top prize with your $2 investment. But first, President Trump making it clear troops will be on the ground in cities around the country, and it will happen soon. The president saying he's decided to mobilize federal forces in Chicago and Baltimore, calling crime in those cities out of control. Now, Democratic leaders in both states are vowing to fight back, saying federal intervention is not needed. NewsNation's Mills Hayes is live in Chicago with the very latest. Mills, good morning. What happens next now that the president says it's time to crack down on crime?
Good morning, Nick. Well, sources telling NewsNation that the National Guard station in Los Angeles is headed to Chicago. It's unclear when they're coming and just how many of them are coming. But this is President Trump doubling down on this threat to Chicago and also Baltimore, really calling out the Democratic leadership in both cities, saying that they're not doing enough to fight crime. Now, yesterday, we did hear President Trump speak from the Oval Office, and this is what he said.
You can go to Afghanistan, you can go to places that you would think of. They don't even come close to this. Chicago is a hellhole right now. Baltimore is a hellhole right now. Parts of Los Angeles are terrible.
The Trump administration calling for a federal intervention to combat crime in cities allegedly swept up by a wave of lawlessness like Baltimore, despite the mayor there pointing to stats like these showing homicides and shootings down compared to this time last year. Local leaders here in Chicago echoing that same message. They say homicide, shootings, and robberies are down overall. Still, the White House sticking to its plans after a violent Labor Day weekend in Chicago where 8 people were killed and over 50 were shot. Governors in Illinois and Maryland are pushing back as some residents brace for the potential deployment of troops on the streets, fearing a repeat of the chaos that took place during Los Angeles' ICE protest in June and more recently the takeover of the D.C. police force.
I refuse to play a reality game show with Donald Trump again. What I want are the federal dollars that have been promised to Illinois and Chicago for violence prevention programs that have proven to work. That is money that Illinois taxpayers send to the federal government, and it's an insult to any and every citizen to suggest that any governor should have to beg the president of any political party for resources owed their people.
The Illinois Attorney General promising to sue the federal government as soon as troops are on the ground, Nick.
Mills Hayes, thank you so much. Joining us now is Alex Gadgetano, White House reporter for The Hill. Alex, good morning. From your reporting, how central is Chicago to President Trump's broader law and order message? And what's the reaction inside the administration this morning?
Yeah, so the president has been kind of toying with this idea of going into Chicago. He's really been focused on Chicago specifically as the next kind of target for this federal crackdown following Washington, D.C. here, where I am. The president has been telegraphing the possibility that Chicago would be the next place to deploy troops. He would write about Governor J.B. Pritzker on Truth Social, mention him in speeches. But he went from last week and the week before saying, I'll have to be asked before I can go in. Now, yesterday, we heard from him in the Oval Office saying, we're going in. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So he's kind of changed his tune and in recent days suggested that now he's ready to go and federal officials will be on the ground regardless of what the governor there wants and if they ask him for anything.
Alex, any word on whether the president will speak again on that deployment today?
You know, in the Oval Office, he tends to talk about all topics. We're going to see him with the Polish leader today, but that I don't think will stop him from wanting to talk about these domestic issues. He'll take questions from the press. So, yes, I think Chicago, Baltimore, whatever is the next phase of these crackdowns is going to be a question that the press has for him and he'll be discussing. There'll also be, him wanting to tout what he claims is the success of the crackdown here in Washington, D.C. We've heard the president multiple times talk about how many arrests there has been, how homicides are down. These are things that the White House is really proud of. So we'll be seeing him discuss that today. But I'm curious, I'll be watching for when he's sitting there in the Oval Office, that will be around 11 a.m. on the East Coast, how much he says, we're actually definitely going into Chicago, like he said yesterday, or if we're going to get back to where he was last week, which was, I'll see if Pritzker wants me there.
And speaking of Pritzker, Pritzker's made it clear that he doesn't want, he won't request any troops. So has the governor of Maryland, Wes Moore. How far can the White House really go without state cooperation?
That's the big question is here in D.C., because of the home rule, because of how the jurisdiction works, he could crack down and send in federal law enforcement. In other states that have Democratic-run governors that don't want him there, how much can he use his bounds? We actually just saw yesterday, after he sent in those troops into Los Angeles months ago to crack down on the protests about immigration and deportations there, the Supreme Court ruled that he can't do that, but he can keep some of the troops that he has on the ground there. So he's really towing a tricky line here of what he can actually do. Whereas in D.C., that's why he started here. There's, of course, that's where he's living as president, but there's a lot of more fluid rules in terms of how much the federal government can step in on intervention.
And Alex, you mentioned how the president had talked about the successes that have been gained in D.C. because of the deployment of those troops. And those successes have been echoed by Muriel Bowser, the mayor there.
That's right. It's really interesting also the way that Muriel Bowser is interacting with the president during the federal law enforcement here in D.C. She has been, happy to hear that there's been less homicides, that the crime has gone down here in the few weeks that we've had federal law enforcement on the streets. She's also knows how to, or appears to know how to interact with the president, that it's not all complaining that you're on my turf and overstepping your role as president, but also saying I kind of welcome some of the successes that you've had. We know Muriel Bowser has had an interesting relationship with Trump. She even was at the White House earlier this year since he's returned to office. So they have this interesting back and forth. And right now she's not in full, complain mode, get out. None of the residents want you. She is welcoming some of those changes that we've seen. And
as a result, Alex, we've seen that she's been able to kind of rebuff some of the ire that the president has directed at others. Alex Gadgetano, White House reporter for TheHill.com. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Nick.
Now to more stories we're watching closely this morning. Vice President J.D. Vance will be in Minneapolis today to pay respects after last week's shooting at Annunciation Catholic School. The Vice President and Second Lady, Usha Vance, are set to meet privately to give their condolences to the families of the children who were killed. No word on whether the Vice President will meet with state and local officials. The attack happened last Wednesday while students and adults were praying. The shooter, 23-year-old Robin Westman, died at the scene from a self-inflicted gunshot. A federal appeals court is striking down the Trump administration's use of an 18th century wartime law to deport suspected Venezuelan gang members. In a 2-to-1 ruling, the court says the Alien Enemies Act cannot be used to speed up removals. Hundreds of people have been sent to a prison in El Salvador through this act. The case will likely make its way up to the Supreme Court. And Disney will pay $10 million to settle claims it illegally collected the personal data of children. The Federal Trade Commission accused Disney entities of mislabeling some YouTube videos, allowing them to snag personal data and expose kids to content that wasn't age appropriate. Disney says it's committed to investing in tools to uphold the highest standards of child privacy laws. And new video shows Hawaii's Kilauea volcano erupting and sending lava flying more than 300 feet into the air. Take a look at that video. Wow. This is the 32nd time the volcano has erupted since December of last year. So far, all of the lava has been contained inside its crater. A lot of people try to get close, but can't get too close there. You're looking live right now at Kilauea. This is one of the world's most active volcanoes. Scientists don't know how long it will take for this current eruption to end. And shots fired in the Caribbean, why the U.S. military took out this Venezuelan boat, and the message the White House wants to send as it boosts deployment in that area. And the U.S. isn't the only major power flexing. The message China is sending with this massive military parade, and leaders of Russia and North Korea among the guests of honor.
Bill O'Reilly, Stephen A. Smith, live tonight on CUOMO.
Let's go!
Even on an antidepressant, I was masking my depression. I felt I was missing out on the moments around me. So my doctor prescribed Rexulti.
When added to an antidepressant, Rexulti was proven to significantly reduce depression symptoms, more than an antidepressant alone.
She said Rexulti could provide a boost. For me, less depression meant enjoying the little things.
Elderly people with dementia-related psychosis have increased risk of death or stroke. Antidepressants may increase suicidal thoughts and actions and worsen depression in children and young adults. Call your healthcare provider right away to report new or sudden changes in mood, behavior, thoughts, or feelings, or if you develop suicidal thoughts or actions. Report fever, stiff muscles, and confusion, which can be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High blood sugar can lead to coma or death. Weight gain, increased cholesterol, unusual urges, dizziness on standing, falls, seizures, trouble swallowing, or sleepiness may occur.
Could a boost help you build on your progress?
Ask your doctor about adding Rexulti.
If you struggle and struggle and struggle with CPAP, you should check out Inspire. No mask, no hose, just sleep. Inspire, sleep apnea innovation. Learn more and view important safety information at inspiresleep.com.
Years of hard work, decades of dedication, committed to giving back. You've been there, done that, and you're still here for more. So now that you're 50 or older and at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia and IPD, be proactive with Capvaxive, a vaccine specifically designed for adults to help protect against pneumonia, an invasive disease caused by certain types of pneumococcal bacteria. Capvaxive is the only vaccine that helps protect against the strains that cause 84% of IPD in adults 50 or older, compared with up to 52% by other pneumococcal conjugate vaccines. Don't get Capvaxive if you're allergic to the vaccine or its ingredients. Tell your doctor if you have a weakened immune system. Common side effects include injection site reactions, feeling tired, headache, muscle aches, and fever. Whether you've had another pneumococcal vaccine or not, ask your doctor or pharmacist about Capvaxive.
NewsNation next Wednesday. The world's most ruthless men, past and present, exposed.
Evil is contagious.
Bill O'Reilly uncovers the disturbing parallels between history's monsters and today's global threats.
Evil doesn't just happen.
And if America doesn't fight them, who will? Leland Vittert hosts Bill O'Reilly, Confronting Evil, next Wednesday, 10/9 Central, only on NewsNation.
Welcome back. 15 minutes after the hour. The Trump administration is putting cartels in its crosshairs this morning after an attack on a suspected drug boat coming from Venezuela that killed 11 alleged gang members. Take a look at this video shared by the president, who says the strike happened in international waters in the South Caribbean. This comes as the U.S. bolsters its military presence around Venezuela. NewsNation's Tom Dempsey has the latest from the White House. Tom, good morning. The president has made it clear that he is serious about Venezuelan gangs. What can you tell us about this boat strike?
Hey, Nick, good morning from the White House. Here at the White House, President Donald Trump saying that striking against an alleged drug boat should serve as a warning to anyone wanting to bring drugs into the United States. And here's the thing, Nick, as we just saw, this whole thing was captured on video. In a post to Truth Social, President Trump shared this black and white video marked unclassified, showing a boat traveling in the water when suddenly you see a flash and then fire coming from the boat. The president saying that strike killed 11 people believed to be Venezuelan Tren de Aragua gang members. The U.S. military did not report any injuries to service members, but the president and his team saying this is only the beginning.
There's more where that came from. We have a lot of drugs pouring into our country, coming in for a long time. And we just, these came out of Venezuela and coming out very heavily from Venezuela.
As long as the president's in the White House, he's made very clear he's not going to allow the United States to continue to be flooded with cocaine and fentanyl and other drugs coming from different places, this one from Venezuela.
The U.S. military has also boosted its presence in the Caribbean recently, deploying at least 7 ships as well as a nuclear-powered submarine and over 4,500 Marines near Venezuela. But an important point of all this, Nick, is that President Trump has accused Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro of working with drug cartels and the Tren de Aragua gang. And in response to that deployment that we just told you about, Maduro described that as an unjustifiable and immoral threat. Nick?
Tom, quickly, this strike comes as Secretary of State Marco Rubio starts his trip to Latin America. What can we expect the results of that to be?
Yeah, a very timely trip to Latin America for Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Starting today, he actually has meetings scheduled with leaders in Mexico. But this trip will also involve traveling to Ecuador as well to speak with leaders there. During both legs, he expects to focus on threats from drug cartels as well as security and tariffs. For Mexico in particular, President Trump has really, spoken about Mexico not doing enough to combat fentanyl crossing the border. So, again, that's going to be a very big issue. This is Secretary Rubio's 3rd trip to Latin America during this term. Nick?
Tom Dempsey with the latest this morning. Tom, thank you so much. And on the other side of the world, China showing off its might as a massive military parade, rolling out everything from warplanes to new warheads. But perhaps the biggest headline there, some of America's loudest critics standing side by side. President Trump saying they're conspiring against the United States. Chinese President Xi Jinping hosting Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un at that parade. All 3 leaders are at odds with America for several reasons, including the war in Ukraine. NewsNation's Robert Sherman is following this all from Kyiv. Robert, good morning. President Trump has a message for the Chinese leader as Xi promises to pump up China's military.
Yeah, Nick, as China celebrates the 80th anniversary of its victory over Japan in World War II, flexes its muscles, and cozies up to Russia and North Korea, President Trump saying he's none too impressed with what he's seeing. This is a statement that he put out on Truth Social. The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. That statement goes on to say, please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. This week, we've seen these world leaders coming together to align their objectives, particularly very explicit ones, to combat and counter American influence on the international stage, with the Russian leader thanking the North Korean ally, for their assistance in the war in Ukraine. Take a listen.
At your initiative, as is well known, your special forces participated in the liberation of the Kursk region. I would like to note that we will never forget the sacrifices that your armed forces and the families of your servicemen have suffered.
So as the Russian leader rubs shoulders with North Korea's head of state, back here in Ukraine, Russian military continuing their bombing campaigns against the Ukrainian people. Over 500 drones launched at Ukraine last night, about 24 ballistic missiles. President Zelensky calling on the West to up the pressure on Russia, saying without it, this kind of tension won't go anywhere. Nick?
Robert, thank you so much. Let's bring in Melinda Herring, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center, an international think tank. There's so much happening, Melinda. Good morning to you. The president wasting no time last night and in the morning hours for China, calling this conspiring against the United States. Strong language for the president, who has expressed that he and leaders like President Putin and Xi are on the same page and friendly with one another. What do you make of all of this after those comments?
Hey, Nick, great to be with you. So some are calling this a coalition of the killing, not a coalition of the willing. And I think that's a clever way to express what's going on here. Today we've seen China flexing its muscles and showing off new weapons. And it's saying, look, we're modernizing. You got to take us seriously. But we see all of America's adversaries getting together and cooking up plans. And this is a very scary image. The relationship between Russia and North Korea and what they've managed to do over the last year in Ukraine is frightening. North Korea is, to put it mildly, not a good player on the international scene, and it's learned a huge amount in the last year since it got in bed with the Russians in terms of its military technology. Who do you think that the North Koreans are going to use that technology against?
And talking about that technology, Melinda, many overseas, particularly the media, calling this a public push from the West as the leading nation. What other reaction do you expect from the White House?
So, Nick, I'm waiting to see if this tweet that you showed is a policy change. I think everyone in Washington is hopeful that this could be a policy change, but Donald Trump is an unusual president. He's not ideological, and it's really hard to figure out his foreign policy. So he's been really tough on Iran. He's talked a tough game on Putin, but he never follows through. He just blew through another 2-week deadline. After the Alaska summit, he said, give me 2 more weeks, and then I'm going to make a big announcement on Ukraine-Russia policy. There's no announcement. There's crickets from the White House. And we've seen other people in the Trump orbit say that he's frustrated with Putin and that he's going to start to flex America's muscle. We haven't seen that. We've also seen him be very friendly in weird, unusual ways with the leader of North Korea in his previous term. So, anything is possible with Donald Trump, but I think that the images we're seeing today from Beijing are scary. And we know that this administration is very focused on China and on countering Chinese influence and sees China as a threat. So I hope that this will wake them up and that they will announce some kind of very firm policy. But, again, anything is possible with Donald Trump.
Melinda, how can they settle this image of global leaders uniting in defiance of the United States to those uneasy Americans who are watching at home? Because you and I both know no one wants to be pulled into a potential conflict.
That's right. So the United States right now under Donald Trump is very focused on China. If you go to the Department of Defense, they're not focused on the war in Ukraine. They're not focused on Russia as an adversary. The top defense officials see China as the next threat to the United States, and that's what they're preparing for, Nick. But I would say to your viewers at home, the Russian threat is here and now. Those images we saw, cities burning, hospitals burning. Yesterday was 2 days ago was the first day of school in Ukraine, and we saw thousands of children underground, Nick. They're taking their classes in metro stations because Vladimir Putin is bombing Ukrainian cities. And even though Ukraine is 5,000 miles away, it affects us as Americans. If we don't stop Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, that war is going to come across Ukraine's borders into NATO territory where we're treaty bound to help them if Vladimir Putin were to attack. So I'd say for America's security, we got to end the war in Ukraine as soon as possible.
Melinda, quickly before I let you go, this parade with China, was that a win?
It's definitely a visual win. You know, the big winner today, I think, is the leader of North Korea. He got on stage with China and Russia, and he looks like a big man. He's cuckoo, right? So he got to be on the world stage today and look like a major leader. It's definitely a visual win, and it should wake up America to say that China is modernizing in North Korea. All of our adversaries, Nick, are moving fast. Where are we? The Department of Defense is still thinking about how to integrate drones into its war strategy. Come on already. Let's speed this up. Our adversaries are not sleeping. Why are we?
Melinda Herring with a chilling message for the administration. Melinda, thank you so much. President Trump's tariff strategy suffers a legal blow. What the latest court ruling could mean for the economy and your wallet. And changes are coming for Amazon Prime members, how the company is closing a loop on one of its popular free shipping perks. That and more when we come back.
My moderate to severe plaque psoriasis held me back. Now with Skyrizi, I'm all in with clearer skin.
Things are getting clearer. I feel free to bear my skin, yeah, that's all me. Nothing is everything. Whoa.
With Skyrizi, 3 out of 4 people achieved 90% clearer skin at 4 months, and most people were clearer even at 5 years. Skyrizi is just 4 doses a year after 2 starter doses.
Don't use if allergic. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
Now's the time. Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist prescribed biologic in psoriasis. Learn how AbbVie could help you save.
Oh, for the love.
Hi, TV Genie. Can you lower my monthly bill?
Nah, I can raise it.
You can what?
You'll see.
Save over $300 in your first year with 3 months free.
Folks, I've seen a thing or two, but these prescription prices? Pricey. Higher than a rooster on stilts. Ain't that right, Dusty Pete?
Reckon it's time we rope them in.
Good Rx makes saving time and money easier than splitting a biscuit. Paper's looking mighty big for its britches there, partner.
Yeehaw! Save time and money on prescriptions. Check Good RX.
$600 a year. If you're 50 plus, you could save up to that much by switching 2 unlimited lines from Big Wireless to Consumer Cellular. So why don't you pick up your phone while I take this hammer and see how we can cut your bill. Call Consumer Cellular.
The perfect snack box isn't one thing, it's everything. So customize your box. Sweet and salty your box. Double chocolate your box. Protein pack your box. Smoothie night perfect your box. Gummy bear overload your box. Think you ordered too much but you didn't your box. Your snacks, your rules. Endless options, 0 compromises. However you snack, build your own incredible snack box at nuts.com and get 20% off plus free shipping.
No one likes getting hit by a pitch. But imagine this ball is coming at you at 237 miles an hour, and it covers you in a chemical irritant when it hits you.
The problem is, in real life, the guys with bats aren't here to play a game. Fortunately, you don't have to be a major league pitcher to protect yourself. Go to Byrna.com to find out more.
You're out.
Welcome back, 5:28 this morning. Here's a look at the top stories we're following. President Trump says he's ready to deploy the National Guard to Chicago and Baltimore to fight crime. He says this is about public safety, not punishing Democrats in major cities. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says federal intervention is neither needed nor wanted. And Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is trying to rally support for tighter gun control laws in the wake of last week's deadly shooting at a Minneapolis Catholic school. Governor Walz says he's planning to call a special session in the coming weeks. It's unclear if it would pass in the closely divided legislature. 2 children were killed and 21 people hurt in that shooting. Israel has begun its long-awaited new offensive into Gaza City. Israeli leaders say the operation is necessary to root out all remaining Hamas strongholds in the Gaza Strip. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the war will continue until Hamas surrenders and returns all remaining hostages. Critics accuse Netanyahu of prolonging the violence for his own political gain to stay in power. And the markets are off to a rough start in September. Stocks slid on Tuesday as investors digested soaring government debt, higher Treasury yields, and a legal blow to President Trump's tariff strategy. NewsNation's Alicia Nieves is live from Wall Street, where the markets will open shortly, and tell the story. Alicia, good morning. How bad was the sell-off, and what's driving it? Help me break it down for our viewers.
Yeah, good morning, Nick. In terms of what's driving it, a few things all related to President Trump's tariff agendas. And in terms of how bad this sell-off was, listen, not the worst that we have seen since Liberation Day when tariffs were first implemented. But given the recent highs that we have enjoyed for financial markets, this was a bit of a hit. If we take a look at the actual close yesterday, you're talking about all three major indices across the board to the downside by about 0.5%. The Dow sliding almost 250 points. Markets more broadly, we're talking the stock market and even the bond market, really rattled by a court ruling on Friday that's just working its way through the markets as we had that long holiday weekend. That court, a federal appellate court, ruled that most of President Trump's country-specific tariffs, those are illegal under the International Emergency Economics Power Act that the president was using to utilize those. Now, for investors, this has basically reignited the possibility that the government may have to pay back more than $120 billion in collected tariffs. That is money that has been used to justify other expensive agendas of the administration, like the One Big Beautiful Bill, basically meaning that without that money, the government has to borrow more money to cover its bills, or at the very least, issue that pretty significant refund. And now, at a time when the Treasury yield, as you mentioned a moment ago, that spiked, right? The 10-year up above 4%, the 30-year up near 5%, which means the cost to borrow just got more expensive for the government as well. So in terms of market reaction that we saw a moment ago, obviously showing some worry for investors, but quite frankly, not full-on panic. There still are many on Wall Street that believe in that phrase we've heard from the White House constantly, short-term pain for long-term gain. Take a listen.
So long term, that could be actually positive for markets. Near term, it throws a grenade in the middle of the negotiating room around tariffs, and who knows how that all breaks.
Yeah, so the reality is this isn't over, right? The tariffs actually stay in place until October 14th, which gives the president plenty of time to take this to the Supreme Court, something he said he wants to do. We're expecting potentially to see him and the administration to file an expedited appeal as early as today. Take a listen to the president breaking down why.
We need an early decision. I mean, look, the financial fabric of our country, we're a rich, incredible country right now. And we're able to, other countries use tariffs on us for years, and we never did. If you took away tariffs, we could end up being a third world country.
Yeah, so all of this boils down to the stock market, which is basically a collection of businesses around the country and the world, really signaling that all of this is causing uncertainty, particularly uncertainty for supply chains, which always trickles down to the consumer amid a time the consumer is already struggling with high prices, Nick.
And there you are, Alicia, with the bottom line, because consumers want to know when they will see relief. Alicia Nieves, live for us from Wall Street. Alicia, thank you so much. Another check of your headlines that we're following this hour. A wildfire in California is moving through a historic gold rush town. The 6.5 fire is burning outside of Sacramento. It is more than 6 miles in size. At least 5 homes have already been destroyed and several areas have been evacuated. The fire broke out Tuesday morning because of a lightning strike, and it was just one of more than a dozen that started that morning the same way. There have been no reports of any injuries or deaths, but at last check, the fire remains uncontained. Amazon is ending a perk that lets Prime members share free shipping with other people and addresses. The Amazon Invitee program will end October 1st. It will be replaced with Amazon Family, which includes many of the same benefits, but you can only share them with someone who has the same primary address as you. It comes as Amazon tries to speed up delivery times and Prime subscriptions have slowed. And all you Mickey D fans out there, get ready, because starting Monday, the fast food giant is bringing back its extra value meals to lure budget-conscious consumers. It will be offering 8 meal bundles at breakfast, lunch, and dinner that includes sausage McMuffin with egg, Big Mac, and the McCrispy. This is the first time the Golden Arches has had extra value meals since 2019, and the chain says they will cost 15% less than buying them each individually.